Alright guys, so moving on to question 33 to 39, starting with 33. So question number 33 is a little doozy. They're giving us 2 points, point Z and point X, and they're giving us the coordinates of Z and X. And they're telling you that they are the endpoints of a diagonal of a rhombus shape. So to put that into picture form, we're going to draw a rhombus. Well, it doesn't have to be that big, but draw a rhombus, and we draw a diagonal, and we label it Z and X. So that one's at 3, 2. Z is at -3, 10. And they're asking us to find an equation of the line of the other diagonal. So thinking back, an equation of a line of the other diagonal. Well, what we know about the diagonals of a rhombus is that, one, they are perpendicular to each other, and they intersect here, which is the midpoint. So we're looking for two things. One, we're looking for the midpoints of Z and X. And to find the midpoint is x1 plus x2 over 2 for the x value, and y1 plus y2 over 2 for the y value. And the second thing we need is we need the slope that's going to be perpendicular. Remember, perpendicular means opposite reciprocal of point zx. And to find slope is just change in y over change in x. So here we go. So x1, x2, here's x1, here's x2. So to find the midpoint, we are going to use those two values. So we got -3 plus 3 divided by 2, and then we'll simplify in a bit. Same for the y. So we got -10 plus 2 and half of that. A little simplifying gives us, so -3 plus 3 cancel out, which gives me 0 over 2, or just 0. -10 plus 2 is -8, and then half of that is -4. So I have the midpoint. I have the point where they are going to intersect. I have the point that my new equation is going to go through. So the second thing I got to find is the slope of the original diagonal that they're giving us, or in other words, the slope of between these 2 points. And so slope is just change in x or change in y. So for my slope, for my change in x or my change in y, from z to x, all I'm doing is change in y. Means how do I get from this -10 to that +2? Well, from -10 to +2, I have to go through 0. So from -10 to 0, that's 10 units. And then from 0 to 2, that's 2 units. So it's a total of 12. And we went from -10 to +2. So that's plus 12. So that's my change in y. Same for the x. How do I get from a -3 to a +3? Once again, I have to go through 0. So from -3 to 0, that's 3 units. And from 0 to 3, that's another 3 units, for a total of 6 units. And it was, again, positive because we went from -3 to +3. And so we simplify, that gives me a slope of +2. Now, in order for my equation to be the other equation, it has to be perpendicular. So I don't want the slope of 2. I want the slope that's opposite reciprocal. So the opposite reciprocal of 2 is -1/2. So I have the slope that I need. I have the point that is going to go through. Now, if you notice, because the x value is 0, that's telling me that I have a y value, or a y-intercept here. So the equation I'm going to use is y equals mx plus b, where m is my slope of -1/2, and b is the y value of -4. And so that is my answer. Moving on to 34. So first of all, they're telling you that it is a trapezoid. And they're also telling you that you have a median. So just real quick, remember the equation that we use for median is base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2. So let's take a look at the first question, in question 34. They're telling you EH, I'm going to use a highlighter. So EH, so this side here is congruent or equal to FG, which is this side here. So that's important because that's telling us that not only is it a trapezoid, but it's actually an isosceles trapezoid. And so that's important because in an isosceles trapezoid, not only are the sides congruent, the diagonals congruent, but its base angles are also congruent, which means that these two angles are congruent to each other, and these two angles down here are going to be congruent to each other. And one more thing is the fact that when you add that angle and that angle down there, they're still supplementary. That means that they still add up to 180 degrees. So let's look at the problem. They're telling you angle E, so this angle up here, measures 65 degrees. Well, if angle E measures 65, that means angle F is also 65 degrees. And I want you to find angle G. Well, first question, I want you to find angle G. So the way we find angle G is, once again, because we know that these two angles are supplementary, all I got to do is subtract 65 from 180, and I get the measurement of angle G, which is 115 degrees. And so the second question, it says, what is the angle measurement of angle GKJ? So angle GKJ, GKJ is here. So one thing we got to look at is, one, these lines are parallel, but also the median is parallel. And so because all three of these lines are parallel, then the angle here is corresponding to this angle here. Now remember, for parallel lines, angles that are corresponding are going to be congruent. So here, the measurement of angle GKJ is also going to be 65 degrees. Looking at question 35. So I'm going to go ahead and label the diagram with whatever information they're giving me. They're telling me that EF, so this base up here is 36. JK is 4x, so the median is 4x. And GH, which is the base down at the bottom, is equal to 2x plus 6. And they want us to find JK. Well, they're giving us JK in terms of x. So really, the only thing we got to do is figure out what is the value of x, so that all I have to do is plug it in and I get my answer. So to do that, we got to do a little bit of algebra. So we know the median and we know the two bases in terms of x. So it's like we're going to solve for x using the median equation. So, we wrote the equation up here. And so that's basically what I'm going to use. The only difference is, instead of, I'm going to replace what I know. So I know that the median is 4x. One of the bases is 36. The other base is 2x plus 6. And all of that is going to be divided by 2. Okay. And so the first step is, I want to get rid of this 2 down here. I want to get rid of the fraction. And so because I want to get rid of the fraction, in order to get rid of any fraction, you multiply by whatever's at the denominator, and you do that to both sides. So because 2 is at the denominator, I multiply this side by 2, and what I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. So when I multiply by 2, on the right side, the 2's go away, and I am left with 36 plus 2x plus 6. On the left side, when I simplify, 2 times 4x gives me 8x. And then I can do a little combine like term. So these 36 and that 6, when you combine it, combines to give me 42. And I still have the 2x and the 8x on the left side. And so the next step is, I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. And sorry, I'm going to write up here. And so now I have 6x equals 42. And the last step is to divide both sides by 6, and I get x to be 7. Now, it's not asking us to find the value of x. It's asking us to find the value of the mid-segment, or the mid-segment, sorry, which is jk. So since I know it's given to me as 4x and I just found x, all I got to do is substitute in whatever I found x to be, which was 7, and simplify. So here, jk is equal whatever 4 times 7 is, which is 28. Moving on. So question 36. Once again, we're going to use the mid-segment formula, which is base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2. So here, base 1, the mid-segment is 3x, base 1 is 27, base 2 is 33, divided by 2. Now here, I don't really have to get rid of the fraction quite yet because this might simplify to something else. Now, if I had x's in the denominator, then yeah, I would try to go ahead and get rid of the fraction. But because I don't have x's in the denominator, I want to see if it can simplify. So that's what I'm going to do first. So on top, I'm going to combine the 27 and the 33. So I have 3x equals, now I still have the 2 in the denominator because I have not touched it yet. And so in the numerator, I get 60. And so if here we can easily simplify 60 divided by 2, which gives me 30. And the last step is divide both sides by 3, and we get x to be 10. Question 37. So again, I'm going to approach it the same way, using the midpoint formula, or the mid-segment formula, I'm sorry, which is base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2. And so here we go. So the mid-segment is x plus 1, base 1 is 2x minus 7, base 2 is x minus 3, divide all of that by 2. So here we have to be a little bit more careful because we have two terms on the left side. So I'm going to put parentheses around that, and you'll see why in a bit. So again, my first step is I want to get rid of this 2 at the denominator, so multiply both sides by 2. On the right side, they cancel out. On the left side, here's where those parentheses come into play. Because we have a 2 in front of the parentheses and we have two terms, we have to distribute to both terms in here. So on the left side, I really have 2x plus 2. And on the right side, everything that I had in the numerator, it comes down because I have not touched it. I have not done anything with it. The only thing I did was get rid of my my denominator. And so now we can combine like terms on the right side. I have everything that has an x with it, I'm going to put together. Everything that doesn't have an x, I'm going to combine together. And so that's going to combine. On the left side, I haven't done anything, so it's just 2x plus 2. On the right side, I have a 2x plus another x to give me 3x. And then I have negative 7 minus 3, which makes it more negative, to give me negative 10. Now, because I have 3 here and 2 there, I'm going to go ahead and subtract 2x from both sides and add 10 to both sides. And what that does is on the right side, the 10's cancel. On the left side, the 2x cancel. And I simplify. On the left side, I got 10 plus 2, which is 12. And then 3x minus 2x gives me x, and I get the value of x. Moving on to question 38. It says MATH, or math, is an isosceles trapezoid. So isosceles trapezoid, remember, it has the two sides that are congruent. And so I'm going to label it MATH. And they're telling you that AT is, this is important. They're telling you AT is parallel to MH. So if AT is parallel to MH, the way I drew it here, at least the way I labeled it, does not work because these AT is not parallel to MH. So I'm going to rewrite it a little bit, and I'm actually going to start M down here, A up here, T, and H. Now that works because AT says is going to be parallel to MH. So even though it's an isosceles trapezoid, it still only has one set of pair that's parallel to each other, and that's the two bases. So moving on, it says angle M is 3x minus 9. So here, put an arrow and label it 3x minus 9. And angle H, so this angle here is x plus 3. Find the measurement of angle H. Now, because it is an isosceles trapezoid, the base angles are going to be congruent. And so because they're congruent, I'm going to set those two expressions equal to itself. So we have 3x minus 9 equals x plus 3. And I'm going to solve for x. So subtract x from both sides, add 9 to both sides. The 9 cancels, the x cancels. On the left side, 3x minus 1x gives me 2x. On the right side, 9 plus 3 is 12. Divide both sides by 2, and we get x to be 6. And now, 6 is not my answer. 6 is the value of x. I want to know what the angle measurement of angle H is. So all I have to do is plug x in here, and I get my answer. And so the measurement of angle H, when I plug it in, is 6 plus 3, or 9 degrees. So last one, 39. It says let AC. Okay, so let's back up. Looking at the diagram, that is important because it's telling you that it's an isosceles trapezoid. And because it's an isosceles trapezoid, we know that diagonals are going to be congruent to each other. And so they're telling you AC is 25. So this diagonal is 25. DB is 5x. Find the value of x. Well, because we know it's an isosceles trapezoid, we know that they're going to be equal to each other. And we set them equal to each other. And to solve the equation, to solve for x, divide both sides by 5, and we get x to be 5.